Welcome to Global Watch. Please subscribe and hit the bell icon for more breaking updates. In the United States Supreme Court, a decision has been rendered that will echo for decades. This landmark ruling is not just a legal footnote, it's a seismic shift in the landscape of American governance. On November 5, 2025, the justices struck down the Trump administration's sweeping use of presidential power in trade policy. This decision marks a pivotal moment in the ongoing debate over executive authority. This wasn't just about tariffs, it was a constitutional showdown over the balance of power between the executive branch and Congress. The ruling underscores the importance of checks and balances in the American political system. The ruling ends an era of aggressive, unilateral tariffs under the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, or IEEPA. For years, this act has been a tool for the executive branch to impose economic measures without congressional approval. For American businesses battered by unpredictable costs and supply chain chaos, it's a lifeline. Small and medium-sized enterprises in particular have struggled to navigate the turbulent waters of international trade under these policies. Yet uncertainty remains. The administration has signaled it will pursue alternative legal avenues to continue its trade agenda. This leaves many wondering what the future holds for U.S. trade relations. International partners from the EU to Asia have watched this drama closely, awaiting clarity. The global community is keenly interested in how this ruling will affect their own economic ties with the United States. Today's decision provides some answers, but the future of U.S. trade policy is far from settled. As the dust begins to settle, all eyes will be on the next moves from both the administration and Congress. To truly grasp the significance of today's Supreme Court decision, we need to look back at the turbulent journey that led us here, a journey shaped by bold policy shifts, global tensions, and fierce legal battles. The story begins with the origins of President Trump's aggressive tariff strategy, which upended decades of American trade policy and sent shockwaves through the global economy. In 2018, the Trump administration broke sharply from the long-standing tradition of free trade. By invoking Section 232, it imposed sweeping tariffs on steel and aluminum, arguing that foreign imports threaten national security. Soon after, the administration escalated tensions with China, launching a trade war under Section 301, targeting hundreds of billions in Chinese goods with new duties. These moves marked a dramatic shift, signaling that the U.S. was willing to use tariffs as a primary tool of economic policy, not just a last resort. But the most audacious step came in 2024. The White House invoked the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, or IEEPA, a law originally designed for national security crises, to justify imposing tariffs on nearly all major trading partners. The administration claimed that the persistent U.S. trade deficit itself posed a grave threat to national security, a rationale that stretched the law's intent to its limits. As a result, tariffs skyrocketed to between 10 and 50% on a vast array of imports. The global response was swift and severe. Trading partners retaliated with their own tariffs, international markets tumbled, and American exporters faced mounting obstacles abroad. Legal experts and economists warned of far-reaching consequences for both the U.S. and the world economy. Critics from across the political spectrum condemned the move as a dangerous overreach of executive authority, arguing that a law meant for emergencies was being transformed into a tool for sweeping economic change. Business leaders, economists, and legal scholars sounded alarms about the precedent this could set for future presidents. The backlash was immediate and intense. Businesses, already reeling from higher costs and disrupted supply chains, joined forces with state governments and lawmakers to challenge the administration's actions. Lawsuits were filed, congressional hearings were held, and the debate over the limits of presidential power took center stage in Washington. The legal battle over the use of IEEPA for trade policy quickly escalated, with lower courts issuing conflicting rulings. Ultimately, the question of whether the president could wield emergency powers to reshape the entire U.S. trade landscape landed before the Supreme Court, drawing national attention and intense public scrutiny. The administration's high-stakes gamble on executive authority set the stage for today's historic Supreme Court ruling, a decision that will shape the future of American trade policy and the balance of power for years to come. At the heart of the legal clash was IEEPA, a law granting the president broad powers during foreign emergencies. The challengers argued IEEPA was never meant for routine trade policy or chronic economic issues like deficits. Those powers belonged to Congress. The administration countered that economic security is national security, and that modern presidents need flexible tools. Lower courts sided with the challengers, ruling the tariffs an unlawful overreach. The Supreme Court's oral arguments revealed deep skepticism toward the administration's expansive claims. The justices' questions signaled a readiness to rein in executive authority. The stage was set for a landmark decision on the limits of presidential power. The journey to today's landmark Supreme Court ruling began in the early months of 2024, when the administration invoked the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, or IEEPA, to justify a sweeping set of tariffs. These measures were aimed not only at China, but also at Mexico, marking a dramatic escalation in the ongoing trade disputes that had already been simmering for years. The administration argued that these tariffs were necessary to protect national security and economic interests, but the move immediately sparked controversy and debate across the country. Soon after, Canada was added to the list of targeted nations, with officials citing concerns over drug trafficking and cross-border crime as justification. The sudden expansion of tariffs to America's closest neighbors sent shockwaves through North American trade networks, disrupting long-standing supply chains and raising costs for businesses and consumers alike. The real flashpoint came in April when the White House declared the growing trade deficit a national emergency. This unprecedented move allowed the administration to unleash a new wave of tariffs, this time targeting nearly all of America's major trading partners. The announcement sent markets into turmoil, with investors and business leaders scrambling to assess the impact of the sweeping new measures. Almost overnight, a broad and unlikely coalition formed in opposition. Major corporations, small business owners, state governments, and lawmakers from both parties joined forces to challenge the administration's authority. Protests erupted outside courthouses and state capitals, while legal teams worked around the clock to prepare lawsuits arguing that the president had overstepped constitutional limits. As the case wound its way through the lower courts, the administration doubled down, imposing even more tariffs and using the ongoing legal battle as leverage in international negotiations. Trade talks with the European Union stalled, and a major US-EU agreement was put on indefinite hold, further raising the stakes for global commerce. The uncertainty sent global trade into a holding pattern. Cargo ships sat idle in ports, warehouses emptied, and businesses around the world put investments on pause, all waiting for a clear legal resolution. The ripple effects were felt far beyond US borders, as trading partners braced for the outcome of the high-stakes legal showdown. In the tense days leading up to the Supreme Court hearing, diplomatic maneuvering reached a fever pitch. The US delayed the implementation of new tariffs on China, hoping to buy time and perhaps sway international opinion. Behind closed doors, diplomats and negotiators worked tirelessly, while the world's media gathered outside the Supreme Court, awaiting a decision that would shape the future of global trade. On November 3, 2025, the Supreme Court justices convened in Washington, D.C., to hear oral arguments in the most consequential trade case in decades. The courtroom was packed with lawyers, journalists, and representatives from affected industries. The justices' sharp and probing questions signaled that they were prepared to scrutinize the administration's use of emergency powers like never before. Just 2 days later, the nation held its breath as the Supreme Court delivered its historic verdict. In a sweeping decision, the justices struck down the administration's central trade weapon, sending shockwaves through Washington and around the world. The ruling not only reshaped U.S. trade policy, but also set a powerful precedent for the limits of executive authority in times of crisis. For American business owners, the tariff war was personal. Rick Woldenberg, CEO of Learning Resources, faced impossible choices: raise prices, absorb costs, or move manufacturing. Bill Harris of Cooperative Coffee struggled to plan for the future, squeezed by unpredictable duties. Even foreign companies like Chocolate's Camille Bloch saw profits erased, expansion plans stalled. Today's Supreme Court decision offers hope for stability and a return to focusing on innovation, not crisis management. The Trump tariffs collected an estimated $90 billion in new duties in just 9 months of 2025, a direct tax on American importers and consumers. The administration touted this as a win, but economists warned of a drag on growth, higher prices, and inflationary pressure. Retaliatory tariffs hit U.S. exporters, especially farmers and manufacturers. The uncertainty froze investment and forced costly supply chain overhauls. Economic forecasts were repeatedly downgraded, with the trade war cited as a major risk. The stalled US-EU trade deal exemplified the chilling effect on global commerce. Many business leaders saw the tariffs as undermining the very industries they were meant to protect. At its core, today's ruling is about the separation of powers. The case forced a reckoning over the president's ability to impose massive taxes without Congress. The administration argued for broad executive tools, while Congress remained largely paralyzed, reluctant to reclaim its authority. The Supreme Court's decision is a clear check on presidential power, but stops short of defining emergencies too rigidly. The ball is now in Congress's court. Will lawmakers finally reassert their constitutional role in trade policy? The future of American trade may depend on their answer. America's trading partners have watched the tariff saga with anxiety and frustration. The unilateral use of IEEPA upended global norms, prompting retaliation and stalled negotiations. The EU, China, and others delayed deals, waiting for the Supreme Court's verdict. Many countries diversified trade away from the US, wary of unpredictable policy shifts. Today's decision reassures allies that there are limits to executive power in America. But caution remains. The administration has other legal tools, and the world is watching to see what comes next. The hope is for a return to rules-based trade, but uncertainty lingers. The Supreme Court's decision is a turning point for American democracy and the global economy. By striking down the IEEPA tariffs, the court reaffirmed Congress's authority over trade and taxation. For businesses, it's a chance to rebuild and refocus. Yet, the administration's Plan B looms, with new investigations and alternative tariff tools on the horizon. The ruling challenges Congress to reclaim its role and citizens to weigh the balance between security and freedom. The future of U.S. trade policy will be shaped not in courtrooms, but in Congress and public debate. This is not the end, but a new beginning.